it's time to do some training. You want to know what I'm training for? The new Punch-Out game for the Nintendo Wii, coming out on May 18th. And boy, am I psyched for that game. So, in honor of the new Punch-Out game for the Nintendo Wii, we are going to be reviewing Punch-Out for the NES. Now, the first Punch-Out game was originally released in 1984 in the arcade, and they released a sequel called Super Punch-Out in 1985, which is the same game, but they used new characters. And so in 1987, they finally re-released Punch-Out on the home consoles, titled Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for the NES. And so this game is the 1990 repackaged version of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, except they removed Mike Tyson in this version and replaced him with Mr. Dream. And this is the version that Nintendo has been using ever since 1990. That game is featured as an unlockable game on Animal Crossing for the Nintendo GameCube, and they also use that version on the Wii Virtual Console. So, for that, let's play Punch-Out for the NES.
Well, here it is, Punch-Out for the NES. In this game, you play as a 17-year-old boxer named Little Mac, and he goes against these boxers that are listed here. When you start the game, then you go up against Glass Joe. He's the easiest opponent throughout the whole game, which explains why he's first. Beating Glass Joe should be no problem, and if you don't know how to beat Glass Joe, then with no question about it that you suck at this game. And if you have a hard time beating Glass Joe, then you really wouldn't stand a chance against any of the other opponents, because this game gets harder and harder as you progress. For me, the game starts to get really tough after I get to Soda Popinski. He is a tough opponent, and he is one of the first opponents that can get pretty frustrating for me.
Ah, dang it! Well, this is it. I lost to Soda Popinski, and now I got a game over.
Now, let's go over the gameplay of Punch-Out. So throughout the whole game, you play as Little Mac, who looks like your average teenager, and you go up against these boxers who are more powerful and undefeatable. Pretty much, in order to beat some of those enemies, then you gotta know the right time to dodge, and the right time to punch. To punch your enemy, you gotta hold up while pressing A or B. By pressing A, you punch to the right, while B is where you punch to the left. If you get a good hit on your opponent, then you get a star, which you use it to press the star button. If you feel that your enemy is stunned enough, then that would be a good time to use it, which is a powerful attack to your opponent. Once someone gets knocked out to the ground, then the referee would come out, who appears to be Mario dressed up as a referee. He does count to 10 when someone is knocked down to the ground. If they get up before he reaches 10, then the fight continues. Whoever gets knocked down 3 times gets a TKO. So, now that I covered that, let's move on to some of the tough opponents that you fight. I already mentioned Glass Joe, who is the first opponent that you fight. After you fight him, then you move on to Von Kaiser. He's slightly tougher, but not by a whole lot. All I can say about that guy is he sucks and you should be able to beat him. No question about it. So, moving on to some of the tougher opponents, Soda Popinski is a very tough opponent, but eventually, I'll be able to take him down. But once you do beat him, then don't celebrate yet, because there is much tougher opponents as you move on. You also come across Mr. Sandman, who is very tough, and his uppercuts are very powerful. After you beat him, then you are moving on to the World Circuit, and this is where you go up against Super Macho Man. Now, this opponent is tough. After he gets up, after being knocked down once, then he does his spin punches, which are very powerful and takes you out in one hit. Your timing has to be perfect when it comes to dodging his spin punches. And yes, he does this every time he gets up, so you really gotta dodge those punches if you want to beat him. Alright, now for me to deliver the final blow on Super Macho Man.
Alright, finally! Woo! So, I finally beat Super Macho Man. So, after you beat him, then you move on to the Dream Fight. Haha, yes. And I bet you can guess what the Dream Fight is. Yep, that's right. It's the final match against Mr. Dream, otherwise known in the original version as Mike Tyson. So, yeah, he is the toughest opponent throughout the whole entire game. How tough is this guy? Well, let's find out. Whoa! And that was just one hit! He took me out in one hit and I had full health. Alright, now get back up. Try to fight this guy again. Oh man! Well, I can see why he's the toughest guy. I mean, his punches take you out in one hit. And there we go. I got hit once again. TKO. Why am I not surprised? And so once you lose the match in this game, then that's it. You get a game over. And so you end up right back on the title screen where you gotta input your password. And man, this guy is really tough. It's gonna take me a lot of practice and hours in order for me to beat him. Let's do it!
Mr. Dream is a pretty tough opponent, and you will definitely get knocked down while you're fighting him. It takes a lot of time, and for all I know, you could be playing the game for hours trying to come up with a strategy to beat him. And that's what I did. Like I said, it takes a lot of time and practice in order to beat Mr. Dream. I probably played the game about 50 through 200 times before I was able to beat him. Also, those punches that take you out in one hit, those only last for about a minute and 30 seconds. After that, he moves on to something that doesn't take you out in one hit, but is still pretty powerful. Even with that said, it still takes a long time to figure out how you beat Mr. Dream. But eventually, after you play the round for even more hours, then you'll be able to figure out some of the best strategies to beat Mr. Dream. Every time he uses his powerful punches at the beginning, then you gotta dodge quickly and immediately punch him in the face twice. It's a pretty effective way to at least take him down once during the first round. During the second round, he does these small punches which you're able to block. Once you block them, then immediately punch him in the stomach and you'll get star points from him. Once he stops doing that, then keep on dodging his uppercuts and punch him in the face as much as you can. Same also goes for the third round, but it's slightly harder. Unless you're an incredibly hardcore punch-out player, then you're most likely going to beat Mr. Dream during the third round of the match.
TKO! Yeah! I've done it! I have beaten Punch-Out for the NES. So, for that, it is time to end the review. Well, that's enough training for one day. So, Punch-Out for the NES. It's a great game. I recommend you check it out. It's a nice classic game that I'm sure you will all love. And yes, while I can leave you frustrating at times, it's still a great game. And you really feel accomplished when you do beat the enemies in this game. So, overall, Punch-Out for the NES receives a score of 8 out of 10. Yep, I really like this game, and you should check it out. Download it on Virtual Console. It's available on that service. So now, I'm only halfway done with my Punch-Out training, because I also gotta do a review on Super Punch-Out for the Super Nintendo. But that's gonna be on the next video. Right now, I gotta get ready for bed. I've been playing this game all day, so it's time for me to get some good, well-deserved rest. Good night, everybody.